Is that a man?
And sometimes the nightmares slip through the cracks.
You told me he disguised as a man and got away. You fucking lying. You're fucking lying. There's no way in hell niggas thought this was a man.
Join us on our jail marathon.
I better not be seeing that, right?
Some of the craziest prison escape stories ever. From intricate plans of escape to lucky twists.
That's insane.
These stories have all the ingredients to leave you speechless. Think some of these sound impossible? Guess again. Welcome to jail.
All right, surprise me. That's insane, bro. Jail officer.
It was an early morning on April 29th.
What in the love story?
And Vicky White was getting ready to put her plan into motion. She had given it much thought in the past few months, and now she was finally ready to do it. At 56 years old, Vicky White was working her last day on the job as an assistant director of corrections in Lauderdale County, Alabama. 17 years. That's how many years Vicky had spent as a corrections officer. During her career, Vicky won the Employee of the Year award 4 times, and she was set to win a 5th time for this last year of service. To anyone who worked with her, from other officers to Lauderdale County District Attorney Chris Connolly, Vicky was nothing short of an exemplary officer. Her work as an assistant director at the prison proved it, but in reality, Vicky White had a secret. After an unsuccessful marriage that started in 2002 and ended in 2006 because of drug use and abuse, and after her ex-husband's death in January 2022, Vicky was finally in love again. But to say the woman had an unconventional taste in romantic partners is an understatement. The new recipient of her love was Casey White, one of the inmates at the prison, one of the people Vicky was supposed to supervise and prevent from engaging in any further criminal behavior. In 2022, Casey White was
Why he built like that, yo?
Already a prison connoisseur. The man had a long criminal record, which underlined his ruthlessness. Casey served his first stint in prison back in 2012, when he got a 3-year prison sentence for beating his brother in the face and head with the handle of an axe sledgehammer. But not even serving time was...
Damn. And you wanted to be with him?
enough to make Casey a good...
Man, people be delusional when it comes to love, bro. Cause no, I'm staying away from that, bro.
75-year prison sentence for 7 counts that included attempted murder and robbery. Only 4 years later, Casey confessed to an
You told me everything I need to know, bro.
2015 stabbing death of a 59-year-old woman. Upon his confession, Casey was charged with 2 counts of capital murder and transferred to a detention center in Lauderdale County. That's where the criminal met Vicky White. There was nothing charming about Casey White, at least not to most people. The man stood 6 foot 9 inches tall and had his entire body...
Yeah, that nigga could hear 10,000 miles away. You see how big this nigga ears is, dog? Nigga ears... yeah, he could hear the ocean. The bottom of the ocean, matter of fact. That is a menace right there, yo.
One of those prisoners who were deemed especially dangerous. Even armed officers were told to be more than cautious when approaching him. But the heart wants what it wants. Or perhaps in this case, Vicky White's heart was manipulated and coerced into caring for Casey White. We'll never know. What we do know is that the two of them, the seasoned corrections officer and the dangerous prisoner, started a romantic affair. Maybe the two of them thought their shared last...
I don't know how they play it off. That's crazy. Damn, yeah, it's crazy, bro.
There are no exact details about who initiated the romance, but it's obvious which one of them had more to gain out of it. Vicky made sure Casey had...
He trying to get his freedom, my boy.
And then, the woman made sure Casey would be free, using her position and her wits to engineer and facilitate a dramatic prison escape. At about 9:30 a.m. on April 29, 2022, Vicky White ordered her subordinates to prepare Casey White for transport from the county jail in Florence, Alabama, to a courthouse for a mental evaluation. After the evaluation, she told the other deputies she would seek medical attention because she wasn't feeling well. As the assistant director of the jail, the woman was very well aware of protocol. She knew transporting an incarcerated person alone was against protocol, but she had already thought it out. In order to ensure she'd be the only officer available for this alleged transport to the courthouse, Vicky had scheduled a van transport for that morning. Hence, several deputies had left minutes earlier with 2 vans transporting a dozen inmates, just before Vicky announced to her subordinates she'd transport Casey White to his mental evaluation. Nobody dared question the woman because of her position in the prison hierarchy. Casey White was fetched shortly after. Nobody knew about the romance. But in the months prior to the escape, Vicky and Casey spoke on the phone over 900 times. Most of these calls were sexually explicit. Their romance wasn't merely budding, it was already well established. Dressed in a black jacket and black pants,
900 is
Vicky White left
crazy.
the door open so a handcuffed and shackled Casey White could emerge out of the prison. The differences between the two of them were striking. 56-year-old Vicky was only 5'5" and had long blonde locks framing her face. Casey White was 6'9", dressed in an orange prison outfit and covered in tattoos. His brown hair was shaved. Once Casey shuffled to the back seat of the patrol cruiser, Vicky drove the car away. But there was no mental evaluation plan for the day. It had all been a part of Vicky's carefully crafted plan to whisk Casey away from the prison. Not even 10 minutes after they departed from the prison, Vicky stopped the patrol cruiser at a shopping center parking lot in Florence. The couple exited the car. Vicky left her jail keys and her radio inside the car. She uncuffed and unshackled Casey. Together, they ditched the vehicle and started making their way further down the path of freedom. When they failed to return to the prison, the other deputies working that day started to grow suspicious. The patrol car was found abandoned in the parking lot at about 11 a.m. Officers called and called Vicky White, but to no avail. Soon, everyone at the prison found out that there had been no mental evaluation plan for the day. They had to face the truth. Casey White had escaped, and Vicky White, the prison's assistant director, had subsequently.
Crazy.
At first,
How did he
Vicky's
finesse that,
coworkers
yo?
feared that the woman had been
'Cause
coerced and threatened.
we all know he don't love her for real.
Casey. But as authorities feared the worst and started their investigation, Vicky and Casey couldn't be happier. They had gotten to their getaway car, a copper-collared Ford SUV that Vicky had purchased only days before, using an alias, and were now on the road, fleeing the state. Money wasn't an issue. Vicky had made sure of this too. In the weeks leading up to the escape, the woman sold her home in the tiny town of Lexington, Alabama, for $95,550. The sum was less than half of the house's market value. With tens of thousands in cash, Vicky could also insure some other necessities. After arriving in Williamson County, Tennessee, about a 2-hour drive north of Lauderdale County, Vicky and Casey abandoned the copper-collared Ford. The car was then found locked and abandoned. A tow truck driver
vulnerable, yeah,
transported
bro.
the vehicle to a local tow lot, unaware of its origin.
Too
By
vulnerable.
3:30 p.m. on April 29th, officials knew for sure that Vicky and Casey White were missing. In the initial official statements, Vicky was described as missing and endangered. But on May 2nd, a warrant was issued for the woman, charging her with permitting or facilitating an escape in the first degree. On May 3rd, Vicky and Casey were found in Evansville, Indiana. They drove in a Ford F-150 to a car wash in the city and then abandoned the car on the premises. They had another vehicle ready. This time they drove away in a Cadillac.
Dang.
On Monday, May 9th, 2022, a task force from Alabama descended on Evansville and teamed up with the deputies and marshals in Indiana. They were going to capture the fugitives once and for all. They scouted the area, but it wasn't until later that day when they found out the fugitives' whereabouts. Evansville detective Darren Richardson was driving home when he spotted the Cadillac in a motel parking lot. He got the license plate and tipped investigators.
Dang.
Vicky and Casey had paid a homeless person to use their identification in order to rent the motel room. Casey White was at the wheel. The car drove away. What happened was like a movie-like car chase. But it all stopped when a law enforcement official rammed the suspect's vehicle, sending it into a ditch. No one knows
Clutch.
exactly what happened then, but when police reached the Cadillac, Vicky White had been shot in the head.
Ooh.
Casey asked officers to help his wife, repeating that he didn't do it. It is unclear whether he was trying to further confuse officers by calling Vicky his wife. Vicky White died shortly after. Her death was ruled a suicide. Perhaps she couldn't imagine spending the rest of her life on the other side of bars. As for Casey White, the man was arrested. After 11 days on the run,
You know he in it
his
for life
escape
now.
was to an end. He was transported back to Alabama. He was then transferred to the William E. Donaldson Correctional Facility in Bessemer, Alabama. In addition to being charged with escape in
Damn.
first degree, he was also indicted for felony murder in connection to Vicky's death.
He's not getting out.
Casey White's trial is expected to begin on April 17th, 2023.
Damn. So it's been going. Okay.
Back in 2018,
Damn.
Fayed staged a spectacular escape, a tour de force which baffled authorities and turned Fayed into somewhat of a gangster superstar. It was a Sunday morning in July 2018. While some attended Sunday service, others, namely Red One Fayed, were getting ready for a show-stopping prison escape. Fayed wasn't a mere petty criminal. He was somebody in the world of crime.
He just looked like He just look like a fucking douchebag, dog. He just look like he a bitch. I ain't gonna lie. People probably just hate this dude, bro. He look like he just a troller. I ain't gonna lie.
He was somebody in the world of crime, a seasoned gangster who took pride in his so-called craft. At 45 years old, the man has spent his entire life involved in some type of illegal activities. Redouane Faïd was born in 1972 in France to Algerian immigrant parents.
Oh, he a troll
He
for
didn't
real.
have an easy childhood. In 1988, his father abandoned his family and left Faïd's mother to care for 11 children. 3 years later,
Damn,
Faïd's mother
11?
died of cancer. Redouane Faïd had always loved cinema, particularly gangster movies. When he was a child, awe-filled by the action-packed thrillers he would watch, Faïd swore he would either become a policeman or a thief. At only 19, he was already a delinquent, and so were his brothers.
That's a crazy
all
difference,
worked
bro.
Together toward a life of crime. Redouane
Wow.
Faïd's first big robbery took place in 1990, when he was still a senior in high school. After robbing a bank, he switched to
Look at
hijacking
his
and
head.
robbing armored vans. At that point, he didn't have big plans for the stolen money. Instead, he used the money to impress his friends. Faïd wanted to look like he was used to leading a flamboyant life. He wanted to be one of the smooth gangsters he adored when he was a child. In the mid-90s, the man led a criminal gang responsible for everything from armed robbery to jewel theft and extortion. After spending 3 years on the run, Redouane Faïd was arrested in 1998 and sentenced to 30 years in prison. He was released on parole only 10 years later. Once he was released, Faïd wrote a book about his experiences, claiming he was a changed man. 2 years later, in 2011, Faïd was back in prison.
Was waiting for
This
it, bro.
time with
Was
the
waiting for it.
nickname Levrikon, the writer. But Faïd didn't entirely agree with his new 8-year sentence. Sure, he was in fact guilty of planning an armed robbery that had claimed the life of a policewoman, but this didn't mean he had to suffer too, right? That's why, in 2013, he used explosives to blast through 5 prison doors, while also taking hostages with him. Faïd fled the prison using a getaway car, but authorities caught up with him 6 weeks later. And this time around, they weren't going to let him escape. Or so they thought. On July
Again,
1st,
bro?
2018, Redouane Faïd was serving his new sentence in the Sud Francilion prison in Rayu.
Hey, come on, bro. You know niggas out the country. Jails out the country, they don't play for real.
The stunt he'd pulled back in 2013 by breaking out of jail had gotten him 10 years imprisonment. 18 more years had been added to his sentence for masterminding the 2010 armed robbery in which a young policewoman was killed. This time around, nobody believed Faïd had another jailbreak in him. They were wrong. Over the
Ain't no
years,
way,
Faïd
bro.
had become well-liked in prison. He was always polite to his guards and fellow inmates. He always had that old-time gangster aura about him. But sometimes, the quiet ones are the most dangerous. It was
Facts.
an early Sunday. It was also visiting day in the Sud Francilion prison in Rayu. 45-year-old Redouane Faïd walked quietly into the visitor's room. One of his brothers, Brahim, was there, waiting to have a little chat with Faïd. Everything seemed normal. There was no sign of foul play. Despite this, prison officials were paying close attention to Faïd. For some months, there had been several sightings of drones flying over the prison. Authorities immediately had to wonder whether there was a connection between the drones and Faïd. For months, officials requested that Faïd be transferred to another facility. But by the 1st of July 2018, the man was still in the same prison, which left guards fearing for their safety. Once he got in the visitor's room, Redouane Faïd made himself comfortable and started talking to his brother. He knew attracting the guards' attention in any way would put a big dent in his plans. He had to appear unbothered, relaxed. In reality, he was probably more than excited, his body tingling in anticipation. He loved planning moments like this. In fact,
Bruh.
he thought of himself as a bit of a filmmaker. Only he wasn't making up a story for the screen. He was altering real life, freezing time,
Crazy,
and
bro.
anticipating any problem that might interrupt his art form.
You think he Michael
While
Bay
he
or
talked to his
something?
brother Brahim, 3 other men were carrying out the master plan to help Faïd break out of prison. Earlier that morning, Stephanie Bai, a helicopter pilot who had been hired by some tourists to give a ride over the countryside outside of Paris, found himself in a dire predicament. He found himself at the mercy of 2 gunmen. The gunmen ordered him to obey their instructions, otherwise, they said, Bai's family would be in great danger. To make sure the pilot would cooperate, the gunman told him there was a commando stationed just outside his home, just waiting for the signal to hurt the man's partner and his daughter. The 65-year-old pilot gulped for air. He knew he had no choice but to follow the men's orders. The helicopter took off. Shortly after, it made a quick stop in a field. A third man boarded the helicopter.
Don't tell me they killed him
Not
anyway,
before
bro.
The gunman loaded what sounded like weapons and other equipment.
Yo.
Once again, the helicopter took off, heading towards Rayu. One of the gunmen told the pilot to land in a triangular courtyard near the prison's main entrance. The prison courtyard was the only area not protected by anti-aircraft netting, mostly because prisoners would use it only to enter and exit the prison. As the helicopter made its descent into the prison courtyard, guards were confused. No one was sure what was happening, not even the prison's central command. In hindsight, nobody believed anyone would be crazy enough to try to pull this kind of stunt. In hindsight, they were wrong. But then something happened. Two armed men wearing black ski masks, paramilitary combat gear, and ski goggles to protect their eyes jumped out of the helicopter and into the courtyard. The men threw smoke bombs and tear gas canisters at all the surrounding buildings. Meanwhile, the third man remained
These niggas playing Modern Warfare in real life. Yo,
inside the helicopter.
this dude a freaking mastermind, yo. What
At
the?
the pilot's head. He ordered the pilot to hover the helicopter above the courtyard. Then, they waited. Meanwhile, the two other gunmen used a power saw to open the door leading into the prison building. They both had rifles and were ready to use them at any
What the
time. In a matter of minutes, one of the men entered the visitor's room. Faid followed him. Together, the two men made their way out of the prison building. Nobody dared to prevent them from leaving the building. In fact, nobody was there, not even one guard. Once Faid got to the helicopter, he knew he had to do one last movie-like gesture.
He gonna blow it up,
He
huh?
turned toward the prison and saw two people, a guard and an inmate, watching him from behind a window. Smiling like one of his beloved old-time gangsters, Faid put his right hand to his temple into a mocking Air Force salute. Then
he trolling.
he was gone. A massive manhunt ensued.
Did they get him back, though?
3,000 French police officers. Red One Faid spent 3 months on the run before he was eventually caught.
I was gonna
He was
say,
arrested
ain't
on
no way.
Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018.
He not getting
at
out
around
now.
4 a.m. local time. Perhaps his sentimentality was what gave him away. French special forces found Faid in an apartment located in Cray, a city in the northern suburbs of Paris and Faid's birthplace. After he was finally caught, Red One Faid was immediately taken to one of France's most secure prisons and placed in solitary confinement. Faid still won, in a sense. His devotion to becoming a movie-like gangster was rewarded in 2018, shortly after he was arrested. French director Pierre Morel, best known for directing Taken, revealed his intention to direct a Red One Faid biopic.
That's crazy. He
The escape of PASCAL
gonna leave by any cost, bro.
True story that
By
shook
any
the
means
world.
necessary.
It's the story of a daring jailbreak in 2001 when convicted criminal PASCAL PAYET orchestrated his
He look malnourished. What the?
own escape from a maximum security prison in southern France. With only one accomplice and
So
no
it's just
outside
France I'm hearing
help,
now.
he managed to break out of a facility
These out of
that
country
they
people are
considered
crazy.
escape-proof for decades. His daring plan was full of clever adaptations and ingenious improvisations, making it one of the most daring prison escapes in modern history. This is the story of PASCAL PAYET's incredible jailbreak, a thrilling tale of intrigue, determination, and sheer audacity. The prison in the village of Louigny in the French department of Bouches-du-Rhône is a place steeped in history. It stands as a reminder of a cruel past when prisoners were punished and disciplined with harsh methods. The
Jeez,
building has
man.
seen many changes over its more than 2 centuries of operation,
Can't imagine.
but the underlying principles of incarceration remain virtually unchanged. The prison has been used to incarcerate criminals, political dissidents, and wartime prisoners over the years, providing an important insight into how European justice systems operated prior to more modern times. This imposing structure, built with the latest technology and security measures, was once considered the most secure prison in the region, with a reputation for being virtually escape-proof. However, this all changed
really?
when the daring escape of PASCAL PAYET, who became the first prisoner in the history of the Louigny prison to break out. His daring feat captured the imagination of the public and put spotlight on the prison, which was now seen as vulnerable and in need of improvement. The escape of PASCAL PAYET sparked a heated debate about prison security and the effectiveness of the current system. PASCAL PAYET is a notorious French criminal known for his spectacular helicopter prison breaks. PASCAL PAYET was born in the bustling city of Montpellier in France, where he spent his childhood years surrounded by the sights and sounds of the city. However, his family soon moved to the charming city of Lyon, where he spent his formative years. It was here that Pascal Payet first encountered the rough and tumble world of crime, which would later shape his life in ways he never could have imagined. As he grew older, Pascal Payet made his way to Marseille, where he fell in with the wrong crowd. In 1988, he was convicted of a violent crime and sent to prison. Undeterred by his experience behind bars, Pascal Payet continued down the path of crime and was convicted again.
Well, I thought bro was on the phone. I'm about to say this, chilling in prison, huh?
He participated in a daring attack on the Banque de France armored car in Salon de Provence, during which a guard was tragically killed. Despite the severity of the crime, Pascal Payet continued to evade the authorities until he was finally arrested along with Eric Albareno in Paris in January 1999. From that moment on, Pascal Payet's life would never be the same. He was sentenced to a long prison term and locked up in some of France's most secure facilities. However, even behind bars, Pascal Payet continued to make headlines, becoming the first prisoner in French history to escape not once, but twice. Pascal Payet first made headlines around the world in 2001.
Talk about beating the odds,
It
bro.
was
My
a daring
gosh.
and audacious escape that sent
Was not
shock
going.
across France. Payet had been serving a 30-year sentence for terrorism and murder, but managed to break out of jail using a hijacked helicopter. This spectacular escape involved him being picked up by an accomplice and airlifted away from the prison grounds. Payet then became a legend overnight, making appearances on television shows and in newspapers across the world. In France,
Horrible
he was
picture, by the
celebrated
way.
as a heroic figure by some people who viewed him as a revolutionary freedom fighter. His escape spawned an international manhunt with police putting out warrants for his arrest. Payet's freedom, however, did not last long. In October of the year 2003, one of his accomplices, Mpoko, was captured and hauled in for questioning in Paris, as the authorities were anxious to keep Pascal behind bars. He was eventually spotted and arrested in the same year while visiting a friend in Spain. However, Pascal's determination was not easily thwarted. In April 2003, Pascal masterminded yet another daring helicopter escape, this time freeing Franck Perletto, Michael Valero, and Eric Albareo from the Luinia prison. The three men had been arrested with Pascal in 1999, and he was determined to help them escape to freedom. In a
Dang.
daring operation, the four of them were whisked away by a helicopter.
So this is real
The
footage.
authorities
Oh
were
my.
once again left stunned. However, their freedom was short-lived, and they were caught again.
The thing is, bro, if you keep escaping like that, bro, at this point, bro, you got it. You can have your freedom. As long as you're not killing and stuff, you can have your freedom, bro. Now, what am I saying, bro? Never mind. We gotta lock him up. What am I saying?
3 weeks later.
I just sound like a lazy
In
cop.
January 2005, Pascal was sentenced to 30 years in prison for murder of a guard which took place in 1999, along with the 1997 armored car hijacking in Salon de Provence. Despite being behind bars, Pascal was not content to sit quietly in his cell. In December 2005, he published an open letter in his blog entitled The Saga of My Transfers, in which he criticized the condition of his imprisonment. He had gone on a hunger strike at a prison in Metz in protest against being transferred 9 times in 30 months.
Dang.
His letter was a powerful statement against the harsh conditions of the prison system, and it drew attention to the plight of prisoners like Pascal. By the year 2007, Pascal Payet was one of the most infamous and closely watched prisoners in France. He had earned a reputation as a daring and cunning criminal, and as a result, he was never kept in the same prison for more than 6 months. To ensure his safekeeping, Pascal was a prisoner who was kept in solitary confinement and was subject to heightened surveillance. Despite the stringent measures
Yet he
taken
still-
behind bars, Pascal kept on planning another escape.
That's actually crazy to
July
think
14th,
about. Wow.
2007, the country was celebrating Bastille Day,
Confinement,
a
dog?
national holiday that commemorates the storming of the Bastille prison in 1789. It was on this day that Pascal and his accomplices executed the most audacious prison break in French history. It was a dark and stormy night in Grasse, France, when all of a sudden the peace was interrupted by a loud roar of a helicopter. In the heart of the celebrations, 4 masked men hijacked a helicopter from Cannes Mandelieu Airport and made their way to Grasse Prison, where Pascal was being held in solitary confinement. Prison guards sprang into action, rushing to the roof of
It's the thing though, like, if he sent those people, how was he able to even get in contact, yo? That's just the whole process I'm trying to get. Like, how was he able to even contact the people to get him?
to investigate the commotion.
How did
The
they pull these
helicopter
off, bro? That's
swooped
crazy.
down, and in a daring move, Pascal was snatched from his cell and whisked away to freedom. Despite the valiant efforts of the
Ugh.
guards, the operation was over in just 5 minutes. And the 43-year-old Payet, who was still serving a 30-year sentence for the murder during an armored car heist in 1999, was nowhere to be found. The helicopter then landed in the town of Brignoles, where PASCAL and his accomplices fled the scene. The pilot was released unharmed, but the authorities were left stunned. 2 days after the daring escape, a European arrest warrant was issued against PASCAL Payet. News of his escape spread like wildfire, and people across the country were in shock. A nationwide uproar resulted in PASCAL Payet's prison break, and the manhunt for him was one of the largest in French history. PASCAL Payet's daring and dangerous escapades were finally brought to a halt in September 2007, when he was captured in the town of Mataró, near Barcelona, Spain. He was transferred to French custody along with his 2 accomplices and imprisoned in a secret location for security reasons.
That's crazy.
The criminal court of the
Secret
Alabama
location.
Department sentenced Payet to 15 years in prison with no chance of early release for a series of armed robberies and assaults against police officers during his time on the run. And in April 2011, the criminal court of Bouches-du-Rhône added an additional 5 years to Payet's sentence for his 2007 prison escape. His accomplices also faced years in prison, while some other prisoners deemed complicit in the escape received lesser sentences. Despite his infamous reputation, Payet's incredible escapes and criminal exploits had profound effect on the French criminal justice system and on the entire nation. As people were left in awe of his audacity and cunning, his daring feats captured the attention of many. This story was subject to numerous TV shows and articles. The Netflix original White Rabbit Project even featured an episode on him, where host Grant Imahara narrated the story while it was reenacted by French actor Thierry Brouard. His legacy as a criminal mastermind and a man who dared to challenge the limits of the law will live on forever. However, his captivation with freedom ultimately proved to be his downfall, as he was brought to justice for his crimes and forced to pay the price for his life of crime.
Dang.
Pinedo Jail is a correctional facility located.
Hold on, my brain just went in slow motion. Prisoner dressed in drag. Oh, so is this the one I seen in the beginning? I'm assuming this is the one I seen in the
Pinedo
beginning.
Jail is a correctional facility
The
located in
woman.
the city of Pinedo, Alagoas, Brazil. The jail was built in the early 20th century and was originally intended to house a few hundred inmates, but it has since become severely overcrowded, with a capacity for approximately 150 inmates, but at times holding over 500. The conditions inside Pinedo Jail are notoriously harsh, with reports of overcrowding, violence, and poor sanitation. Inmates are crammed into small cells with limited access to basic necessities such as food, water, and medical care. Some inmates reportedly sleep on the floor or in hammocks with no beds provided. Due to
That's
overcrowding,
crazy,
violence
man.
is also a significant issue inside Pinedo Jail. Inmates are often forced to join gangs for protection, and fights and riots are a regular occurrence. The lack of staff and resources has also made it difficult to maintain order and prevent violence from escalating. However, it was in 2012 when Pinedo Jail gained popularity, not only in Brazil, but all across the world. What's even more fascinating is that the recent surge in the prison's popularity was not due to any upgrades or changes in its policies, but because one inmate, Ronald Silva, tried to make a run for it in his wife's attire. Deep inside the walls of Pinedo Prison, Ronald Silva sat on his bed, staring out of the small barred window. He had been there for months now, ever since his last failed escape attempt, and he was starting to feel like his life was slipping away from him. He had always been a man with a plan, a man who could think on his feet and make things happen.
Oh, really?
But here, inside these walls, he was just another inmate, another number in a sea of criminals. But Ronald was not the kind of man who would give up. He was determined to escape, to leave this place behind and start a new life on the outside. As he sat there, staring out the window, he began to formulate a plan. He knew that he couldn't just try the usual escape. He needed to do something different, something that no one would expect. And that's when he had his epiphany. He would escape dressed as a woman.
Like, bro, Buddy really believes that he's a woman. You're not serious, dog. Is that lipstick too? Just turn around, turn yourself back in, bro. There ain't no point of you even trying to escape. Nobody's believing that unless a nigga is really horny. There's some niggas out there. It's not me. Nobody's falling for this.
It was
I
crazy.
don't care.
It was risky, but it might just work. He could see it all in his mind's eye, walking out of the prison gates in a dress, a wig on his head, and his arms and legs shaved clean. It was so outrageous that it might work. Ronald knew that he would need help, He couldn't do this alone. So he decided to take help from the closest person he had, and it was none other than his beloved wife. As soon as his wife arrived for a prison visit on the day of the escape, she brought along an extra shirt, a wig, shoes, and bright red lipstick. Unbeknownst to her, she was about to become a willing accomplice in her husband's escape plan. With these items in hand, Silva began his transformation, eager to make a new persona and leave his old life behind. But this was no ordinary disguise. Silva went all out to create a convincing female persona, even shaving his arms and legs to look the part. Dressed head to toe in women's clothing,
Come on,
Ronald
bro,
had
you're
pulled
not
off the most daring
serious.
escape in recent memory. From a black wig to a little blue dress, he had raided his wife's closet and left everyone wondering how he had.
No. Like, what really made him, like, look in the mirror and was like, yeah, I'm out here, bro. Nobody catching me. They not gonna know.
Managed to pull it off.
There's no way you think it was
What's
gonna
more,
pull off.
He had done it all with the flair and panache that would make even the most seasoned criminals jealous. Ronald slipped into his wife's clothes, put on a wig, and applied makeup to his face. He looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself, but he had to keep his cool, act natural, and walk out of the prison gates without anyone suspecting a thing. As he made his way through the prison, Ronald's heart was racing. The guards were watching him, eyeing him suspiciously, but he kept his composure and played the part of a meek, obedient wife visiting her husband. When he finally made it to the prison gate, he took a deep breath and walked out into the world as a free woman. Ronald's daring and unconventional escape attempt made headlines around the world. It was a bold move that few people had ever attempted before. The prison's director, Carlos Welber, later revealed that Silva had hatched his plan during his wife's weekly visit to the prison. Silva had managed to swap clothes with his wife, who left the facility wearing his Bermuda shorts and another top that she had brought in her bag. The swap went unnoticed by the guards, allowing Silva to don his wife's clothes and attempt his daring escape in broad daylight. At first, it seemed as though Silva had succeeded in his daring plan. With his wife's help, he managed to walk straight out of the prison's front gates, confident in his new guise as a woman. Silva's heart was racing as he walked towards the nearby bus station, where his accomplices were waiting on their motorbikes. It was just a few more steps, and he would be free. But then, disaster struck.
You thought?
A police officer spotted Silva almost instantly, remarking on his funny walking, as he hadn't quite mastered the art of walking in heels. Silva's dream of freedom was over before it had even begun. He was apprehended by the police, and his accomplices were nowhere to be found. It was a crushing blow for Silva, who had gone to such great lengths to plan his escape. At the end, he was promptly taken back to the prison while still wearing
Yo,
his
this fit is
elaborate
outrageous,
disguise.
bro.
In a statement to the press, Carlos Welber, the prison's director, explained how the officer had become suspicious of Silva's unusual gait and demeanor, which gave him away. The officer's quick thinking and swift action prevented Silva from enjoying his successful escape for more than 30 minutes, and he was promptly returned to Pinedo Prison to face the consequences of his failed attempt.
That's tough.
According to Carlos Welber, the director of Pinedo Prison, there was a significant amount of preparation and premeditation that went into Silva's daring escape attempt. In an interview with Brazil's Globo G1 website, Welber expressed shock and disbelief at the audacity of Silva's plan. It was a crushing blow for Silva, who had risked everything for a chance at freedom. But it was also a testament to his demeanor.
This photo is so
and
funny, bro. It's so
After
stupid.
all, not many prisoners would have thought to take
Like, you
DIY
really thought of that?
disguises to such an extreme level. Silva's wife later admitted to swapping clothes with her husband, but claimed she had no idea why he wanted them. According to Carlos Welber, the prison's director, Silva's wife said that it was her husband who had demanded her clothes, and she complied with his request. However, the authorities were skeptical of her story and suspected that she may have been more involved in Silva's plan than she let on. The repercussions of Ronald Silva's daring escape attempt were left far and wide. It had left the prison authorities red-faced and with egg on their faces, as they were now forced to come to terms with the limitations of their security measures. They were now scrambling to reevaluate and improve their systems to prevent any future escape attempts. The daring escape took place during visiting hours, with scores of family members present, oblivious to the unfolding drama. The chaos and confusion must have been palpable as Silva made his way through the crowded prison in his wife's clothes. However, his plans were soon foiled when the eagle-eyed police officer spotted his suspicious behavior and intervened. Despite Silva's best efforts, he was apprehended and brought back to the prison, where he was met with the full wrath of the authorities. He was quickly brought to justice and made an example to deter any future escape attempts. The incident left a lasting impact on the prison and its security measures, prompting a thorough
You know the
review
prisoners
of
mad
the
as ever. They're like, all right, bro, now you
The
making this.
safety and security of the
They
inmates
gonna look at us more now.
were paramount, and no stone was left unturned in their quest to ensure that such an incident would never happen again. Share your thoughts with us in the comments
Stuff.
below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
I didn't really think someone was gonna carry out trying to disguise as a whole woman. Like, you really thought that was gonna last, yo? Come on, bro. Never thought that was even a real thing. Never thought niggas actually go that far for freedom. You got it, bro. I'll stay in there. For as long as I got to, I'll stay in there. It's okay.
This one love on me, tell her shut up. You wanna beef with me, get your fun up. You're not a car cracker, you a runner. Now what it seems, nigga, do not run up. Fucking your bitch, nigga, like I love her. She want a 3-5, I'm a double. You was a bitch, nigga, for them shut up. Riding the best, nigga, I'm gon' cut up. Your bitch wanna eat dick, nigga. 10-5 Glock gon' clip that nigga. Switch on the Glock, gon' glitch that nigga. Red, white, blue, like fuck that nigga.